All right, grab a seat and pour yourself a strong coffee. Welcome back to the Case Files. I'm opening up the folder on Season 1, Episode 6 of this whole vegetable underworld conspiracy, and let me tell you, it gets incredibly messy. You know, you spend enough time staring at these files and you start to realize the rot in this garden. It goes all the way down to the roots. Today, we're zeroing in on the exact moment a sweet, completely innocent fruit realizes the game is totally rigged and she decides to start swinging back. So pay close attention to the details here, folks, because when you're unraveling a setup this dirty, well, the devil's always in the fine print.
Bam! 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 You can almost feel the wood splintering, right? Inside, Strawberryna's heart is hammering just as loud as the door. She's trapped in there, listening to a furious, vengeful Potato threatening to literally mash her front door off its hinges. It's Potato Keisha. She's thick, she's angry, and she is standing right on her porch at the absolute crack of dawn. Now, to understand exactly why a street thug is trying to break into a wholesome Strawberry's house, we gotta rewind a bit and look at the chaotic chain of events that led up to this morning.
Okay, let's just rapidly rattle off the timeline to get up to speed on this conspiracy. It was a classic squeeze play. Look at 24 hours ago. Tamarind and Potato Keisha used the Wacky Produce Club as the bait. Then, 12 hours ago, things escalate into the trap. We're talking a spiked drink at an illegal VIP underground ring, a creepy cucumber stranger, blackmail photos, all of it suddenly interrupted by a police raid. Then, 6 hours ago, Strawberryna actually thought she was safe. She was given a quiet ride home by a supposedly soft-spoken officer. But that was false safety. Which brings us to the present. She's sitting in her room, getting leaked interrogation room texts from some unknown insider, and her paranoia is going straight through the roof.
Think about this. Just yesterday, this was a naive fruit whose biggest Friday night thrill was, organizing her seed collection, church-going, trusting. She honestly believed Tamarind was just a friend looking for a fun night out. But man, when the world shows its teeth, your internal monologue completely changes. That wholesome facade just burns away, and it gets replaced by pure, adrenaline-fueled paranoia and unadulterated rage. She realizes those texts from the precinct mean her so-called friends completely set her up to take the fall. We are watching her harden into a street-level survivor right before our eyes.
I mean, just listen to her internal monologue at this exact moment. The lingering fuzziness from whatever Keisha slipped in her drink, gone, completely replaced by the bitter metallic taste of betrayal. She realizes that to deal with the rotten elements literally at her doorstep, acting sweet just isn't going to cut it anymore. Actually, scratch that. It's more like, when someone is out there threatening to mash your door down, you have to bury your innocence. You have to become something else entirely.
So this standoff on Memphis Avenue? It doesn't end in a polite negotiation. It bleeds straight into pure violence. Strawberryna doesn't cower, and she sure doesn't call the cops. She already knows they're in on it. Step 1, that front door flies open so hard it bounces off the wall, and Strawberryna just roars at Keisha right there in her nightclothes. Step 2, Keisha lunges, and this violent tackle spills them both straight down the steps onto the cracked asphalt. Step 3, Strawberryna actually plants her feet, throws her whole weight forward, and unleashes a devastating right hook straight into a potato starch core.
Listen, this wasn't some clean, choreographed movie scuffle. No, this was the gutter. You've got synthetic extensions flying absolutely everywhere as Keisha tries to grab her by the stem. Tangled blonde hair, bruised red skin. To Strawberryna, hitting Keisha felt like, well, punching a solid sack of raw russets, just knocking the wind right out of the potato. And picture the background of all this chaos. The neighborhood grapes are just frozen over near the alleyway, watching in absolute horror as this innocent strawberry viciously pounds a potato right out in the street.
And here's the twisted irony of the underworld, folks. The loudest accuser is almost always the guiltiest party in the room. Keisha is out there screaming, accusing Strawberryna of being a snitch, of ruining the whole setup. But check the case file. Keisha was the one whose face was plastered on the morning paper for cooperating with the authorities. She was the one trading those spicy blackmail photos of Strawberryna just to buy her own freedom. She totally sold Strawberryna out, and now she's out on the street demanding the digital file back, playing the victim. Honestly, it's projection at its finest.
But in a rigged game, you really have to ask yourself, who is actually setting up who in the shadows here? Was Keisha playing the cops, or were the cops playing Keisha? And what about that unknown informant texting Strawberryna? Were they trying to protect her, or just winding her up to take out the potato? We barely even have time to process the question before.
A booming voice echoes down the street telling them to drop their hands. It's Officer Benson. Yeah, the exact same nice, quote-unquote, thoughtful cop who supposedly saved Strawberryna from the VIP raid just hours earlier. The guy who told her she was a victim. The guy who drove her home in the quiet safety of his cruiser. But now, he's standing under the street lamp. His service weapon is drawn. And let me tell you, he's not giving Strawberina a comforting look. He's giving her this cold, dead stare.
And right here is where the ultimate betrayal locks into place. The officer hits Strawberina with this cold, hostile glare, barks at her to step away, and slaps the cuffs right back on her. The charge? Assault. But Keisha? He just gives the potato a totally detached look. He doesn't arrest her for attacking a house, no way. He just casually mentions that the chief wants a word about a broken deal. The precinct and the thugs, they were working together the whole time.
So, this brings us to the really cold reality of the produce underworld, a little concept called getting juiced. It means being squeezed of your innocence, completely set up, and just destroyed by a corrupt system. Take this away with you, if nothing else. Strawberina wasn't just set up by Tamarind and Keisha at the club. The trap was actually built by the very badges sworn to protect her. The cops who drove her home and left a jacket on her floor, they were just as dirty as the street players. The whole shebang was a calculated snare from top to bottom.
Keisha stumbles backward, right? She's coughing, clutching her stomach from the beatdown, and then she flashes this bloody, wheezing smirk and delivers the absolutely cynical truth of this entire case file. I told you, Brina, in this city, everyone gets juiced. It's chilling, because even when you fight back, even when you win the physical brawl out there on the asphalt, the house always wins. The system was rigged against the Strawberry from the very second she walked into that club.
So we close the file on episode 6 with this really weary, provocative question. If the police were pulling the strings from the crisping drawer all along, who is Strawberina going to have to crush next just to survive? She's in handcuffs again, sure, but she is definitely not the same naive fruit she was yesterday. She knows how to throw a nasty right hook now. And honestly, in a garden this deeply corrupted by rot, she's absolutely going to need it. All right, case closed for today, folks. Thanks for joining me for this explainer. Keep your eyes open out there and trust no one.